So welcome back. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Kesha Lambert. Kesha was actually like my last podcast interview that I got to do before the whole COVID thing happened, and it's a really good one, if I don't say so myself. A former lawyer, or a recovering lawyer, as she puts it, Kesha Lambert is an award-winning New York-based wedding photographer. She's photographed more than 300 weddings. Her calendar is a testament to her success. She's become known for her fashion-influenced storytelling style, as well as her ability to convey clients' personalities through images. Please enjoy your talk, Working with Large Wedding Parties. Kesha, the virtual floor is now yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Almost there. All right. So thank you, Bryce, for that introduction. Thank you to Image Salon for having me. I am honored to be a part of this amazing event alongside so many photographers who I find to be inspiring. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. We'll jump right in. We'll start with an introduction. I am Kesha Lambert, title photographer of Kesha Lambert Photography. I am a mom of 3 boys, a wife to an awesome, supportive husband. We run a very busy wedding and portrait business based out of New York. We photograph many, many weddings, and many of those weddings are large multicultural weddings. And this is why I chose this topic, because large wedding parties are a staple in our client profile. And when it comes to my approach and my philosophy about my work and how we interact and approach every new job, I do the absolute most. It's become interwoven into every fiber of my business reputation that I am somebody who has the end goal of bringing something signature to each and every client experience. It's the reason so many people come to us, and it is a staple in the word of mouth, the things that people say about us. Doing the absolute most means you will find me often in completely unnecessary positions doing. Bryce, is everything okay?
Play on your keynote slide.
Oh, are you, let's see. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, we're seeing the screen. It's just it's not in presenter mode. So if you go up and yeah.
I did it. Are you able to see it now? Are you?
No. Let's just continue forward the way that it is, because we're.
No. Okay. Because I am going through screens. So are you able to see the transitions? We can start this. I can start my screen share again. 1 second.
Oh, it's probably like sharing to the wrong screen.
Got it. Let me start sharing. Are you able to? Are we seeing it now?
Yeah, the transitions seem to be working. Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. Well, I think we're all set now.
Yeah, continue on.
All right. So, as I mentioned, my philosophy and approach is all about doing the most. You'll often find me in these unnecessary positions, going so hard, all to get a fresh perspective for our clients. And this becomes uniquely challenging when it comes to larger wedding parties. Weddings inherently come with challenges. Here you have me, bless my heart, desperately trying to set up these clients into formation, and it is a large.
Kesha, sorry to jump in again. Yeah, it's it appears like we're not seeing the slides as you move through them. Like we're just seeing the like the.
Oh no! All right, let's try this again.
Do you have more than one screen?
No, yeah, I'm going to share the entire screen. Let me know if this works. Are you able to see me now?
Yeah, can you try? Oh, okay. It seems like we're in the right direction. Can you try like just switching between? Yeah, okay. We
All
did
set?
it.
All
Continue
right.
on. We're on the
All
right track now.
right. All set. All set. Here we go. So here you have me working with a larger wedding party, trying to direct them from the ground to get into formation. And these types of things are uniquely challenging when you are working with a larger group. Things like this, where if you've ever tried to set up a large group and you find that there are distracted eyes, or you're shooting midday and you've got your large group set up perfectly in relation to the light, and then the clouds shift or the sun shifts, and now you've got two people in the group lit differently than the rest of the group. It poses there's so many layers of challenges that can present when you're working with a larger group. Time is limited, execution becomes a little bit more challenging. The attention span of the group, people who are drinking and celebrating, can be short. Distractions in the environment are plentiful. We've got relatives who are excited, who want to shoot over your shoulder, and we've got vendors who need answers to questions. And there's so many things pulling at the people, and there are relationship dynamics at play. And in all of this, the stakes are high, and you have expectations that you not only want to meet, but you want to exceed. And so my mindset was at one point that larger wedding parties are overwhelming for all of these reasons. I know there are many photographers who will not do a wedding north of a certain head count. And for me, a lot of the weddings that we really do enjoy and love photographing tend to be these larger weddings. And the first step in tackling these weddings is that I had a mindset shift about the large wedding. To me, it was not this daunting thing that I wanted to avoid, but it presents a huge opportunity. A huge opportunity on the business end, because look at all of these people. With each and every wedding, we are a walking, talking advertisement for our business. And here you have, with a larger wedding party, a larger number of people who get to experience what it's like to work with you, a larger spread of opportunity to leave a wonderful impression and strengthen your word of mouth. On the creative side, having more people and more personalities to feed off of and pull from presents the opportunity to create something magical that you might not have otherwise been able to do with a smaller group. And so before I start sharing tips and best practices, I'm going to explain what, to me, a large wedding party is. For me, anything north of 12 people, including the bride and groom, I consider to be a large wedding. That is by no means the largest number I've ever worked with. I have worked with groups as large as, I think my record is actually a 40-person wedding party, 20 on each side, and plus the bride and groom. So for the purpose of this talk, that's what I'm referring to. And so the first step when you have a larger group is to get out in front of the expectations. I preach this a lot: condition the client's expectations. This means that we need to establish a realistic baseline. Go into the conversation before the wedding day, letting the client know what they can expect to realistically happen on the wedding day, what you can accomplish, what is your approach. Whether that means that when your group becomes larger, if it exceeds this head count, I lean towards capturing lots of candidates, or I go for the simpler setups first. Get in front of those expectations so that when they send you those beautiful Pinterest boards and elaborate shot lists, you can let them know that I received this, I'm happy to review this, I welcome it, I want to know all of the things that excite you and inspire you. However, we're not going to need the shot list on your wedding day. We are going to make a plan. Yes, we can review the list and the inspiration boards, but be open to ditching that plan, because one, a better opportunity might present on the wedding day, And two, we need to be open to how the day unfolds and what it allows for us to make happen. And so these are kind of the baseline things that we want to talk about with our client before we have reached the wedding day. This is of the utmost importance for any wedding, but even more so when it comes to working with larger groups. If you're anything like me, I'm an introvert and I love people, but the larger the group, the more my energy sources are drained. So it's super important to do what you need to do to arrive on the wedding day with your mojo intact. That means for me, I need to have a venti cold brew iced coffee before I show up for the wedding day. But for someone else, that could mean making sure you don't arrive hangry, making sure that you have a big breakfast. It could mean that you meditate, whatever it is that allows you to arrive with your energy on 1000 and your performance at your best self. Do those things before you show up. Prioritize getting your mojo right. And ask nosy questions about the people in the wedding party. So when you work with the couple, you have a ton of opportunity to get to know them. Not so much for the other key players on the wedding day. Many times we don't even meet the people in the wedding party until we show up on the wedding day. And while I don't suggest that you spend a ton of time trying to personally connect with the extended family members, it's just not practical, or the extended people who will be in the wedding party, you can still gather information about them. You can still ask your couple tons of nosy questions, and I love to use questionnaires for this purpose. Ask them how they met. Are they college buddies? Do you have a party animal in the bunch? Is someone shy and reserved? Who's most likely to cry? Find out about their history, because these are things that will help you to establish a rapport on the wedding day. When you walk into the room, you may be a perfect stranger to the group, but you are coming in with some information that you can pull from about the people that you will be spending a ton of time with on the wedding day. First, safe, quick, and easy shots first. And these are the shots that you can do in 0 to 60 seconds, that you can do in your sleep. My quick safe shots are to line the groups up, line them up next to each other, pay attention to hands and feet, make sure that they're all pointing in the same direction, make sure the expressions are matching, but do your safe shot first, the one that you've done because you've photographed many weddings, or you photographed a few weddings, and you know that you can do this particular photo quickly. So make sure you get that done, because once you get that done, you now have freedom to play around. And this is my go-to, lining them up, because I can switch up the mood from this position. We can do something that is moody, and we can go to bright and playful. And it's a great way to make sure that you have gotten your job done, but now you also can move on and experiment. Observe and absorb. So this is super, super important, is to be constantly observing all throughout the wedding day. Pay attention to how they talk to each other, the things they say. People share little anecdotes and stories and jokes. Look at the dynamic between the people. Look at what they're wearing. Pay attention. You should always be absorbing what's going on around you. Even when I'm photographing detail shots, if I'm in a space and there are other people interacting and bustling around, all my ears, my radars are always up. And this is another opportunity for you to gather information about who you're working with. And this is another resource to pull from when you're working with the group. Make them your partners in crime. And this is super huge. People want to feel like they're a part of something magical. And when you credit them for their contribution, even if that contribution means that they just said yes to your crazy idea, even if that contribution is simply falling in line, credit them for their participation in making the magic happen. And when you have that camaraderie, you get a better outcome. We have varying personalities in any given wedding group, and a big part of getting people to get on board with some of what your ideas is to pull them into the creative process and make them feel like they are a part of doing something really great and really wonderful for the couple who they care about. Eliminate distractions. And when I say eliminate distractions, I'm not just talking about objects that are distracting. I'm talking about people mainly. I'm talking about the relatives and the vendors and other things, other people in the environment that can pull their attention. The people who need to do it for the gram and get their photo of what a behind the scenes photo. And part of the best way to eliminate distractions, there's two ways. One, you can ask for people politely to leave the environment so that you only have the people that are needed for the shot, or you can move your wedding party to a spot that is hidden or discreet outside of onlooking eyes. So eliminating distractions can go a long way when it comes to your wedding party even feeling overwhelmed, for them their attention to be focused, and getting everyone on the same page. That doesn't mean that our modern day couples really care about their their social media behind the scenes. It's going to happen as much as we don't want it to. This is a staple in the modern day wedding for many, many couples. And even if they have an unplugged wedding or rules, there will always be someone, and in many instances, the couple themselves would like to have some behind the scenes cell phone photos for their gram or for their social. And so designate one person who can be the iPhoneographer. That way they still get their cell phone photos, and then they can share it amongst themselves when they're done. And you don't have paparazzi happening, which can be overwhelming, not only to you as the photographer, but distracting and overwhelming to the people that you're photographing. Take the couple out of the center. So now moving on to tips for getting the composition or the posing a little bit more interesting than lining them up or your traditional clean and classic style portrait. Taking them out of the center of the frame is a great way to mix it up and create a more interesting composition. Wherever the bride and groom are placed, I believe becomes the focal point of the portrait, and it's okay to play around with positioning. Use levels. The larger the group, the more you'll need to make use of levels, seated, highs and lows, unless you want the ultra wide portrait. You will find that using levels in a large group portrait is an extremely useful tool. The larger the group, the more steps, highs and lows, and layers that you can use with the levels to keep them positioned still relatively close to each other. Use environmental markers to maintain balance in your composition, in your posing. And what do I mean by environmental markers? Here, I like to search for things that I can use in the environment to allow me to position people in a balanced way. It's often very hard in the moment, especially if you're working under a time crunch, to see and perfectly place people symmetrically. It's not the easiest thing. The larger the group gets, the harder it is to come up with something symmetrical. And so here we have two columns, and I use that as my marker. I know that however I position these bridesmaids around these columns, I have a marker that I can use as a starting point in how to position them on both sides of the bride. I use the environment to help me figure out where to place people. Using walls and hallways and columns can give you points to position people and keep your posing and your composition balanced. Here we have another example of using the environment for markers. I use the columns again here as a way to position the bridesmaids around the bride in a balanced formation. Match up the moods. And I touched on this earlier about large groups. People don't see themselves when they're being photographed, and we can see them. And it's really important to give the group a point of reference, give them a prompt that they can relate to so that everyone's on the same page for a formal portrait. It becomes distracting when you have expressions that are doing, unless that's the intent of the storytelling element of the portrait, it can be a distraction if the expressions are different. If we've got 70% of the group slaying and one person really cheesing and another person looking off into the distance, we don't have something cohesive. So if we want a cohesive outcome, it's really great to give them a prompt so that their expressions can match up. Whatever that prompt, and this is where knowing about the wedding party, and this is where observing the relationship dynamics throughout the day and absorbing everything will come in handy, because you pick up things that they say that they have in common, movie references, experiences that they have been mentioned throughout the day that you can use as a point of reference when you're giving direction to the group. Matching up expressions results in a cohesive look to the photo, and people will follow those cues, and you'll be able to exude joy or moodiness, sultriness, when you as a photographer provide them a prompt, and bring their awareness. When you see something that isn't matching up, to bring their awareness to it and direct those tiny things. Use environmental props. At any given location, there are a multitude of things that you can find in the environment to use as a prop. Here, in this case, it was the, what do you call these things? The bellhop, the things that you use to transport your suitcase. They were just kind of hanging out outside. We were standing there. We had done our safe shots, our formal photos, and I said, hey, let's use these things. And we lined them up and we got this shot.
Kesha,
Here,
I'm going to have
yes?
to jump in because we're running out of time, and I just want to make sure that we get some time for Q&A, because there's some good
Sure.
questions for you, if you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely. Should we cut it here?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and again, sorry for the technical difficulties.
No worries. Okay. So we'll cut out.
So one of the questions we have, and I think this is a pretty common one that we've all experienced at different times, is what would be your tips or advice to manage bridal party members that aren't jiving, like are being a part of the shoot, that are being difficult, like no smiling or acting like they would rather be anywhere else?
Right. So one of those things, I think this is where relating and paying attention to those cues throughout the day comes in handy. One of the things that I do, bribery is the wrong word, but establishing like an end goal with them, like acknowledging and recognizing, like, hey, I know it's hot. I know that you want to get to cocktail hour, or I know you're hungry. If we all just get this done in I'll have you at the cocktail hour in 5 minutes. Just promising promising an outcome, or getting everyone on board with reaching that outcome of what they ultimately want, because everyone has a motivation. That motivation might not be making the couple happy. It might be getting the tight shoes off their feet. So whatever that is, I kind of acknowledge and relate to it, empathy, and recognize and kind of give them like something, a silver lining to look forward to. And I've also worked on being very quick and efficient about when I catch that kind of energy in the group. You pay attention to those, you see them, and then you know that you need to work a little bit faster, or you might need to skip on doing certain things based on that energy.
Nice. Another question we have is, how many assistants do you usually bring to these larger weddings, if any?
I usually have at least one assistant, and that's it. We're two photographers and an assistant. So we have a designated lighting assistant, or assistant to do random things, throw glitter, float dresses, etc., and a second photographer. So max 3-person team. I have had one behemoth wedding where we were a 4-person team, so 3 photographers and an assistant. But usually we're max 3-person team.
Nice. And you kind of already touched on this one, but how do you deal with cell phone addiction, like with the group photos? So like when, people are like waiting around, like when they're waiting around for you to set up for the shot, and they're like looking at their phone and aren't being responsive.
Cell phone addiction. So one of the things we do is no cell phones while they're in front of the camera, and we appease. I know people are checking maybe their mentions and their likes, but we just make that one of the ground rules before we start, and that's where we even offer to, the designating the one person. A lot of people like that because then they feel like they're still getting picked, behind their pictures done. And for those who want to check their phones, they survive for the few minutes that they can't check their phones. Simply asking people, for the most part, usually does the trick. No one ever wants to be put on the spot, so we kind of make it a general, we're all putting it away kind of thing.
Cool. Well, Kesha, thank you so much for being a part of this and for the talk. And yeah, I'm a really big fan of your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
For sure. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, so we're going to take another short break, and then we're going to be back with Two Man Studios.